In the year 1935, a child is born in the rough streets of Jersey City, New Jersey. His parents give him a simple name, Richard Leonard Kuklinski. No one could imagine that this quiet boy would one day become one of the most feared men in America. He was a loving father, a devoted husband, and one of the most cold-blooded killers in American history. They called him the Iceman. Born in Jersey City, New Jersey in 1935, Richard Kuklinski's life began in violence. His father, Stanley, was an abusive alcoholic. His mother, Anna, a devout Catholic who believed in punishment through pain. Their home was not a place of warmth, but of fear, a place where every noise could turn into another beating. As a child, Richard learned early that pain could be survived and eventually controlled. The boy who once trembled at his father's footsteps would one day make others tremble at his own. By his teenage years, the anger that built inside him finally exploded. One cold night in New Jersey, after years of humiliation and bullying, Richard snapped. He hunted down one of his tormentors, and in a dark, rain-soaked alley, took his life. For the first time, Richard felt something new, not guilt, but power. That single moment marked the birth of a man who would one day be known as the Iceman. In the years that followed, his cold nature only grew stronger. He started with small crimes, delivering stolen goods, petty theft, but his violent reputation quickly spread through the underworld. Soon his name reached the ears of one of New York's most feared crime families, the DeMeo crew. To them, Richard Kuklinski wasn't just another criminal. He was the perfect weapon, a man who could kill without hesitation and without conscience. Richard was efficient, methodical, and utterly emotionless. He didn't see his victims as people, only as problems to be solved. Sometimes he used guns, sometimes knives, other times poison. He even experimented with cyanide, calling it the easiest way to kill someone quietly. Over the years, he would claim responsibility for more than 100 murders. Whether or not that number is true, one thing is certain. Richard Kuklinski was one of the deadliest men the mafia ever employed. Yet behind this monster of the underworld lived another man, a husband and a father. At home to his wife Barbara and their children, he appeared gentle, protective, almost ordinary. They saw barbecues, family trips, Christmas mornings filled with laughter, but they never saw the guns hidden in the basement or the blood-stained clothes burned quietly in the backyard. Every night, Richard kissed his daughters goodnight, then went out to kill someone else's father, brother, or son. Kuklinski had become a chilling legend in the American underworld. His wife, Barbara, would later recall how loving and charming he could be until something inside him snapped. In those moments, his face would go blank and all warmth disappeared. "That wasn't my husband anymore," she said. "That was someone else." That someone else was the Iceman. His nickname came from his gruesome method of freezing victims to hide the time of death, a trick that helped him evade law enforcement for years. But no one escapes forever. The FBI had been tracking Kuklinski using wiretaps and informants until they sent undercover agent Dominic Polifrone to pose as a fellow hitman. Over months of meetings, Kuklinski bragged about his murders, even explaining how he killed with cyanide. On December 17, 1986, federal agents finally moved in, surrounding his car and arresting the man who had lived two lives, the loving father and the remorseless killer. News of Richard Kuklinski's arrest reached his wife, Barbara. She refused to believe it, until the truth became impossible to ignore. The man she had built a family with was one of America's most prolific contract killers. In prison, Kuklinski remained eerily calm, speaking about his murders as if recalling daily routines. There was no guilt in his voice, only cold precision. "Killing someone's just like stepping on a bug," he once said. Psychologists who studied him found a man molded by years of abuse and trauma, a boy who learned control, not compassion. But even they admitted not every abused child becomes a murderer. Richard chose his path again and again until he became the monster within. Over time, his legend grew beyond the mafia, a chilling symbol of how evil can wear an ordinary face. In 2006, after 2 decades behind bars, Richard Kuklinski died in prison at the age of 70. His final years were marked not by regret, but reflection. When asked if he was sorry, he simply said, "I'm sorry I got caught." The story of Richard the Iceman Kuklinski is not just about murder. It's about how rage becomes power, and power becomes an addiction. He was a man who lived with ice in his veins, leaving behind a trail of frozen souls, proof that sometimes evil doesn't look like a monster. It looks like a neighbor, a husband, a father,